So for project 3, what it looks like is kind of happening. I told you guys that when we reviewed the syllabus at the start of the semester that it was kind of flexible. And I was thinking that it was probably going to turn out to be 3 projects, in sort of, 3 sections throughout the course. It's probably going to be 4. Okay? And the reason is this. I want to do a separate assignment that's specifically geared toward modeling and representing the connection to the ground plane. Okay, so that is a particular area that a lot of people tend to ignore in terms of developing their architecture, not only just for design reasons, like they just kind of take their building as an object and put it on the ground, but it also, when you get to the point of actually representing it, it's a really hard thing to represent because you have to detail it a particular way so that light, shadows, and reflections and stuff are accurately depicted. Not to mention materials. So, project 3, that first sentence is really, or that first phrase really is key, where it says project 3 will address the de-objectification of architecture. So by de-objectification, what I mean is our architecture, our designing, right? Basically, the whole function that we're here for School for is about integrating our architecture into both a natural and man-made condition. So in this case, I liken it to the idea of nurture and nature, right? Nurture being, humans as a biological organism that's in nature and responds to nature, and then humans as being incubated by the architecture that we create for the lives that we wish we had outside of nature. Okay, so and that's a very long way of describing what I wrote there. But basically, just kind of jumping down here, you saw that the due date up top was November 10th, right? So that's 2 weeks away. And these 2 deliverables right now are very basic. Okay, this isn't your whole assignment for project 3. This is just the first little chunk. Okay, so now at this stage, we're going to get a little bit more analytical about how we're designing these elements, and then we're going to use that analysis to both develop the architecture and develop the representation. Okay, so what we're doing this weekend here is that first deliverable that you see, and then probably 1 week to 2 weeks out, we're going to be developing the rest of the base model that we're going to be designing with, or basically designing. So that design algorithm catalog sketches, that's what I want you to be thinking about while we're going through, or while you guys are going through this weekend and approaching the actual modeling that we're going to be doing next week. Okay, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail in a moment. But after that, we're going to follow it up with actually developing the model. So I kind of talked a lot and it was all very abstract. Do you have any questions about that yet before I show you the images of what I mean? No? Okay. So we're going to get very, very simple with this. So this is kind of what I'm describing as a scalar relationship of nature to nurture. Okay? Nature being the natural environment and nurture being the man-made built environment, right? So where we're trying to land is somewhere in between the 2, okay, in a basic sense. So that center image is kind of key. So all of these are essentially steps. One of them is a very natural condition, the other one is a very man-made condition, then we have this one that kind of blends the 2, right? So the idea here is that what we're going to be developing is it should be a simple design in terms of form and volume. Your geometries are not going to be as crazy as they were on the other assignment, but we're going to focus a lot on modeling techniques for smooth curves, volumetric transitions. We're going to do some detail elements like developing steps. And then we're actually going to get to the point where we're starting to integrate some natural elements. And for now, it's not going to really be anything but like a green texture or something like that. And I'll figure that out when we get there. But what I want you to focus on is kind of the bottom, right? The bottom of this is kind of the key, is how do you actually integrate man-made architecture with the natural environment and make it look good and feel convincing and feel like it actually belongs. And this one right here is just kind of a clean, just just a simple, dead connection at the end. But when you get into studying things like in an urban environment, you have the opportunity to take it a step further, right? So this is Cooper Union in New York, and so really what they did was they just took these huge concrete columns and they brought them down to the urban concrete environment, right? And so you can see that it's the same kind of concrete that the sidewalk is made out of, and it just kind of grows from there to support the building. So that is the first standard deviation that I want to pull you guys away from understanding typical architecture as an object that sits on the ground. Now you've kind of, rooted, in this case, you've sort of rooted the object to the ground, and you're starting to separate it from that objectification. But this is kind of the last and key image that I want to show you here, and it's a very simple form, but it's a natural integration. This is what we're going to be pursuing. But the key here I want you to think about is how do you transition space? Okay, so some spaces are interior, some spaces are exterior, and what we're going to focus on here is, I don't know if you can see like this area right there. I guess really it's sort of more like this whole section. Right, so we're going to look at the layering of different spaces as both a diagram analytically, and then we're going to look at it as a detail architecturally. Okay. What questions do you have before I start to describe the actual elements that I would like you to have when you come back on Tuesday? No questions at all. You guys are really wiped out. Jeez. All right. So give me a moment to grab a few more things, and then we'll move into that. It'll just be 1 minute.